Good afternoon. Thank you all for being here today. Thank you to those who are tuned in through the web or some other TV source. This is the beginning of our annual Mondays in March series. And so as you know, what we try to do is to give everybody an update from the perspective of the leaders of the parts of the institution. Dr. Jacobs will start today with a focus on the academic enterprise and talk about where we stand with regard to our plans and also about where that leads us, some of the ideas about priorities and opportunities that we should pursue in the future. Next week, Ms. Sadro will offer the same sort of perspective from the institutional support areas, followed by Ms. Sollenberger on Monday the 21st. And then this year, we're going to do something a little bit different with that last Monday. We're going to do a panel presentation of the four of us, and really the principal part of that is focused on just answering questions. So hopefully at the conclusion of today's session, at the conclusion of others that you or others attend, it will generate ideas for questions, and then we'll spend that last Monday addressing those. And we'll certainly be inviting people to submit questions in advance. We know that a number of people won't be able to be here for that last session in person, but we hope no matter where you are, you will take the opportunity to submit a question or questions to us, again with the goal of clarifying where are we and where are we going from here. So with that said, let me ask Dr. Jacobs to come up and give us a presentation for the academic enterprise. Thank you, Dr. Jacobs.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you, Chief. All right, thank you all for coming. This is a whirlwind tour of the academic enterprise. So as I was thinking about it, this expression came to mind. I was talking to Ruth Finkelstein earlier. Where are you, Ruth? So you're going to help me if I get all this wrong, right? So sleep, creep, and leap. So there are probably some other gardeners in the crowd. All right, so bear with me. I thought the analogy was good. So, unlike annuals, which you plant and hopefully if all goes well, they blossom and look beautiful. If they don't, you get pretty upset and throw them away. Perennials, on the other hand, you have to sort of go through this whole process. You go to your local gardener, a garden shop, select what the plants or the seeds, and then you take them in your carefully prepared bed, you plant them. And then you look around and not much is happening. And you say, well, what's going on? Yeah, Mary, you know that too, right? Well, what is going on? The root system is getting established. And so you need the roots in order to make sure that the nutrients in the soil obviously flow up to nourish the plant. The better the root system, the more likely it is that the plant can resist disease and pestilence. And then that's typically in about the second year. And then if all goes well, about the third year is when you actually see the plants come into their full effect. And so you know then the root system is well established, and you've done a good job in terms of weathering the effects of time. Gardeners will also say that, well, after that leap year, you may also see that they start to fade. And what's going on then? The expert gardeners will say, well, that's a time to take the plants, dig them up, divide them so they have more room for growth. I think that's a wonderful story because I think it pretty much reflects what we've been doing at UTMB. Dr. Callender may say that we started planting the seeds 125 years ago. Done a lot of work along the way, but if you look at what's happening recently, new hospital openings, all the things we're trying to do to make ourselves better, you can say that we're taking our root system and allowing it to spread. So what I hope to do today, and here's just some pictures, you can see examples of it, of course, so not a very good root system. Here's a great root system. Here's a plant that didn't establish a root system. This one did better. Some examples up there of not very good root systems, but here's one that did great. So a little context. You may remember from some of my earlier presentations, I showed something like this, where based on what I'd heard from you and what we were talking about, we agreed that the way forward might look something like this. We agreed, I think, that we needed to set higher expectations for performance. We also talked about the importance of alignment and dense communication as we tried to craft a shared vision for the future across the whole academic medical center. We said we had to improve how we organized and how we collaborated, and we said at every instance we needed to be thinking as a system, how we could collectively pursue those things that are of greatest interest to us. And then I think Ms. Sadro might like to see this one because a while ago we said, well, we wanted to make sure that we had best-in-class decision support capabilities, and we wanted to make sure we thought about business development as a collective. This slide says, well, this is what we thought we would identify as desired outcomes. This is that engagement piece. Everyone talks. Everyone would communicate about our way forward. Everyone would own that path. We would decide it mutually, and we would work together, and everyone would participate to help us realize our dreams. Part of that would require that we measured ourselves against our strategy. Our performance would be balanced, and if we did all of those things, we would be agile, nimble, and flexible. And as you may recall, when we did that survey and asked the members what they thought about us, we were not necessarily described as an agile, nimble, or flexible organization. You may have seen this slide as well, which is this, I call it an orienteering, a working philosophy, and I'll just click right through all these, but you can see we said we wanted to define reality first. Without knowing where one is in space and time, you really can't set a future direction. We would pursue this path forward by building alignment and commitment. There'd be these bumps in the road that people call complex learning problems, and those are things that require the community to be engaged. Those are things where you have to have that collective wisdom. Those are things that a provost or a president or anyone alone can't accomplish. And then if we got all that right, we'd be able to measure our success, and we would be pleased because that would add value to what it is to be a member of this great institution, UTMB. Now, I put this in because I wonder if some of you feel like this. All right, can you help me out, Tim? Now, so that person actually did pretty well. Sometimes it feels to me like it's a little bit worse, and you take all the balls you can, 18 of them, you throw them up as high as you can, and then you try to juggle a few, and then the ones that fall, you pick those up, you throw them back up, and you just keep running through the cycle, right? Well, I'm going to hope to show you today that it's not quite like that at all. New hires and appointments. We have done great things. I say that oftentimes it's my favorite saying is, great people are coming to UTMB every day to join the great people who are already here. Our great people already at the institution are assuming greater roles and responsibilities. And so I think if you look at that list, which is just a snapshot, you'll see that our root system is getting stronger every day. I asked Dr. Watson to weigh in on some things she wanted me to highlight for her school, and here are some of the things here. Couldn't possibly make a slide of all the great things happening in the School of Nursing, but she wanted to make sure that I mentioned the top ranking as regards the online graduate programs, national board certification rates that are extraordinarily sound and good. She also wanted to make sure I mentioned this new Senior Express program that she's opening up with her hospital colleagues, which is trying to facilitate the passage or if you will, the transition of senior nurses to actually some of our facilities. So that's a great way to take the talent that she's developing in her schools to make sure those people come and work at our facilities. And then the Jonas Foundation Scholars Award that was received, it supports 2 doctoral students' tuition and fees, and they get to participate in the policy development program in Washington. I asked Dr. Protas to weigh in, and again, the list was long, but she gave me these things. A record number of graduates, 360, right? Did I get that right? I think that deserves a round of applause. Not that the School of Nursing is not doing it either, but that's great. There are great people in her schools. Dr. Odenbacher, you see here, was recently appointed to a National Academy of Medicine committee on the use of assistive devices to eliminate or reduce the effects of impairment. He also was the PI for a major grant, as you see there, to establish or to continue a Center for Large Data Research and Data Sharing in Rehabilitation. I'll get to that in a second, but that's the kind of forward-looking approach, the forward-looking competitiveness that I think is so important for us. And then the last, 4th bullet point there is that their Department of Nutrition and Metabolism graduated its first class in 2015. Well, so Dr. Niesel's ill, so he couldn't be here today, but I also asked him, so what should we highlight for the graduate school? And he emphasized the importance of making the graduate school's programs flexible and adaptable as regards helping our students prepare for increasingly diverse careers. So there's a first-time offering of an Introduction to Big Data course. There is an expansion of the statistics instructions in the school. And importantly, on the next slide, I'll show you that there is an effort to develop these competency-based training tracks, if you will, to make sure that the trainees in the graduate school are best prepared for their future careers. And then lastly, there was the focus on internships, those kinds of enriching opportunities for the students. And for example, there's currently a student participating in some activities at the National Academy of Sciences. This slide sort of highlights some of the curricular changes that Dr. Niesel wanted me to mention. White, existing courses; red, approved new courses; blue, approved revised courses; and green, proposed new courses. So you can see here, there's a bioinformatics course that's being offered, revisions to biochemistry and statistics, the normal structure of the program there that's unchanged, but then working on developing new coursework and ethics, on competencies for career development and exploration, career-specific tracks, internships and practices, or practica, like I mentioned, and then also looking to make sure that the trainees are developing the appropriate competencies for their career progression. Creeps and leaps. So won't read all of this on the slide, but I think these are a few of many examples of how we're planting seeds and developing the root structure again, and in many cases also making leaps forward. Ranges from Dr. Protas' selection as chair of the Southern Association of Allied Health Deans at Academic Health Centers, to Dr. LeDuc, to the ITS renewal, to our faculty members being honored by the Regents for teaching great work in the School of Nursing, Dr. Temple leading the way his research on teen sexting reaching 600 million people, Dr. Markades receiving the 2015 Robert Kleemeyer Award, recognizing his expertise in aging, Dr. Townsend named President-elect of the American College of Surgeons, and again, that very large grant I mentioned about Dr. Audenbacher. So telling the good stories. And remember, I often say that, there are great things here happening every day, and we have to make sure we continue to tell the great stories. And if you're bashful and shy and don't want to do it, I want to tell them for you. So we were very proud to launch our first Academic Enterprise magazine, 11,000 copies. We spread it around to other academic health centers, as well as UT dignitaries and alumni with Ms. Clarity's help. And here are just a few quotes that we got, that we received. And they were very complimentary, and that made us really, really proud. We're working on the second issue right now. Won't be able to get all the great stories in the next issue, but keep sending us your stories and we will work them in. Alexis Lloyd has really done a good job trying to organize us around the publication of this magazine. Well, here's an example of how a complex learning problem where we listened to you and we got input, and then working with Mr. Reigard and others, we're able to resolve some of the concerns that our faculty members had about travel. And so now airfare can be booked from multiple vendors. Remember before it was only Anthony Travel, but now we have a number of others that are acceptable. We addressed this issue of exceptions to booking airfare. Before, we had to have more paperwork that would demonstrate proof of savings of $100 or more. Now the traveler can attest that the best value was obtained. I think that's important. And then we've been able to shorten the approval time down from about 6 weeks to about 3 weeks. But how do we do that? We heard about the concerns. We had that engaged conversation that I talked about. We had the dialogue. We identified options. And then we're able to make some improvements. Here's another example of working together. So you see here extraordinary growth in clinical productivity from FY11 through FY15. A very impressive trend line, and that improvement still holds true, whether it's MGMA Academic, that's the reference comparison, or MGMA Physician, or FPSC. It also mirrors very nicely here with what I think you can unabashedly say is spectacular growth in our clinical services. So I borrowed this slide from Ms. Sollenberger. If you look at the health volumes from fiscal year to date 13 through 15, you'll see wherever you look, discharges, patient days, deliveries, surgical procedures, that there's been 14 to, in some cases, 51% increase in those activities. So I wanted to pause and say thank you for that, because that is extraordinary by every measure. All of you have contributed in some way to that great success, so thank you. Wasn't an applause line. Wasn't an applause line, but that's great. Okay, what else are we doing? So how many folks know about the Scribe pilot program? Yeah, a few, okay. So again, listening to the members and paperwork, electronic health records, always challenging. But with the President's support, we launched this pilot program last year, and we launched it in the community-based clinics in dermatology, OBGYN, and otorhinolaryngology, head and neck surgery, where our initial efforts were to focus on studying how we could improve optimization in our clinics, how we could improve physician and patient satisfaction, and also address quality of care. The pilot program has been very successful, and I just tried to highlight a couple of things there. When we polled the physicians, they were unequivocally and 100% satisfied. They thought it made their efforts made it easy for them to care for patients and improve the quality of the work that they were, the services they were providing to their patients. We asked the patients as well, and when you look at the spent time with me query, it improved dramatically. So the patients also thought this was a great addition. And then if you looked at productivity, and this is just in family medicine where we piloted this, but I think it's broadly true across everywhere we've rolled out the programs, the physicians who used the scribes also were more effective. In family medicine, they added about 0.9 additional patients per clinic session, and Dr. McCallum and his team led this effort, and the good news is that's enough to cover the cost of the scribes and create a little margin. Isn't that right, Dr. McCallum? A little bit. So we're going to roll that out and expand it. We think it's a very important program, and like you see here, important for our clinics in terms of how efficient they are, important for patient satisfaction, quality of care, as well as physician satisfaction. STARS program. So I wanted to put this up because this is an example of the great people that are coming to join us at UTMB, great leadership by our chairs, but also very strong relationships with UT System. So this is just in the past year where we've been able to successfully put forward these fine scientists and get them some support from System for their programs. They range from Dr. Allen in Pharm and Tox down to Dr. Heather Stevenson-Lerner in pathology. We think this is really important as we try to identify the resources that allow us to take our research programs forward, so stay tuned. We launched Grant Central last year, and so this is another concept that came from the members. It said that, in these days, in these times, when funding is challenging and paperwork is also increasing, what could we do centrally to try to improve the ability of our investigators to compete successfully for grants? So under Dr. Niesel's leadership and others, Dr. McNeese, Dr. Garg, Dr. Garcia Blanco, and others, Tony D'Agostino I see in the back, we said this concept of a grant concierge is important. So we're able to identify Craig Cassidy, you see there, who comes in as our grants concierge person. And there are many functions that are assigned as his responsibility, but they include developing new applications for extramural funding, helping to revise those that were previously submitted, and also focusing on multi-investigator or multidisciplinary applications. If you look at his bio, you'll see that he is very well qualified to do this, having authored or supported major grant awards in his previous jobs. We also worked on the infrastructure, more about the root system, if you will. So grants management, you may recall, or maybe you don't know, but we had some specific objectives that were part of this AE 2020 planning exercise, incorporated into Power in My Power, which are the applications we have in the Provost's office. And I wanted to focus on this particular one, improving academic enterprise grant management. The objectives were to maximize the awarded funds and the resources, to improve grant management stewardship by having a central, single application that folks could go to help them monitor their programs. Simultaneously, we would hope to reduce the unused, if you will, or forfeited funds that we were unable, despite best intentions, to track, which would mean in some cases the dollars would be returned back. And then again, here's that performance reporting piece. Wanted to make sure that we had appropriately crafted reports and dashboards that would help our investigators accomplish grant management more effectively. So this was a process, again, maybe another complex learning problem, where we went back and forth with the investigators, solicited their ideas, and then with Mr. Bristol, Mr. Skinner, Mr. Anderson, and others said, okay, let's create those reports that are crafted in such a way that they would be of maximum benefit to the investigators. We also worked with Mr. States and others in shared services on the grants module, a new grants module. This is that part of the standardized reports and dashboards where we enhance PI reporting, monthly and yearly budget periods, sorry about that, are available. We have some automatic notifications so that when grants are about to end, the investigators know in advance. We also have automated notifications of deadlines and project closeouts. We're still working on that, and we expect to have another module added that will include a projection tool which allows us to look forward and think about forecasting. I wanted to show some data comparing how we're doing just for NIH awards among regional institutions. So you can see this slide here. It shows the percent change from FY14 to 15, Southwestern, UTMB, Austin, Baylor. And you see here it ranges there for the institutions, the 4 institutions that had an increase from 2.4 to 8.42, with UTMB showing about a 5% increase. Another 4 institutions had decreases comparing FY15 to 14, MD Anderson, Texas Tech, UT Health System Houston, and UT San Antonio. Important piece is that we should be proud of the fact that we were one of only 4 regional institutions that actually had an increase in NIH awards. This slide is kind of busy, but the effort here was to try to look at trends. So the blue line is UTMB, of course. The orange or red line are the other institutions where I took the average. With help from Tony D'Agostino and her folks, we look back fiscal year 10 all the way to fiscal year 15. So here you can see there was a dramatic decrease, about a 15% decrease comparing FY10 to the previous point. But over time, it appears that this is increasing, and I mentioned the 5% increase that we witnessed in FY15. And if you look what's happening, I think it's early, but that trend, our trend, is positive, while the other trend appears to be negative to stable, declining, or maybe stable, I think declining. Wanted to spend some time talking about the AE 2020 initiative. So as you all recall, we spent a lot of time and energy talking about what it is we wanted the academic enterprise to be in 2020 and how we would go about accomplishing it, with input from 5,000 folks sharing their ideas as well as our strategic working groups. We prioritized 7 things. So these 7 initial priorities are listed here. We wanted to make sure that we were partnering effectively with the hospital in terms of identifying program priorities. That was completed. We felt we needed a performance management platform that's on focus. We identified that, brought it in. We're using it now. That's completed. We said we wanted to have discussions about centers and institutes. We said that we thought it would be increasingly important to talk about succession planning. We had to change the targets there, but we're on track. We also identified philanthropic support as being important. That's on track. We wanted to make sure that we were competing more successfully for research funding. That's on track. And so out of the 7, the only one that we feel needs further attention and development is the idea of introducing competency-based curricula into all of our schools. These slides get a little busy, but it's the same information presented in different ways. So this is looking at the 7 original objectives, and then adding in those things, we also had part of our at-risk performance expectations for any given year, as well as other at-risk objectives. And so the color code is meant to add up a little bit. So priority objectives, at-risk objectives, and then the colors mapped down here. So succession planning in purple, centers and institutes progressing towards the target, although the target's been changed. Competency-based curricular reforms, you see it needs attention. Completed as Plan 5 and progressing as Plan 2. And so I think if you look at that for what I think can fairly be called stretch targets, not easy things to accomplish, you all have done extraordinarily well, because that's 70 to 90% of the way along the path to improving things the way we said we want to improve them. This looks at other non-priority objectives, not part of obviously the first slide, but some other things we thought were important for the academic enterprise. 8 objectives here, again, color-coded, extending, or at least talking about how we might extend performance-based compensation down through the ranks, if you will. Our committee did great work on the proposal there in terms of defining the next steps. That's in blue. UCount initiatives we identified as important for us to address. That's completed. Then here, progressing as planned, in green, working to think about how we partner together to address challenges in population health. Working on interprofessional education under Dr. Watson's leadership. Working to make sure our IT platform is sound and strong. Work with Mr. Campbell on brand management, specifically as it relates to the academic enterprise. And then the 2 that need some additional attention, trying to pursue these interdisciplinary cross-institution translational research opportunities, and then trying to make sure that we're generating a margin, appropriate margin, to help us pay for all the things we want to do in the faculty group practice. Now, I'm expecting you to read all this, but tools and tactics are everywhere, right? So the teams are all working on it. This is part of the OnFocus platform. And so we get these reports, we look at them with you, and it is very specific in terms of referencing specific objectives, describing the objective, talking about how we're going to measure our success, talking about the target, showing actual, showing the folks that are leading that initiative. I saw Dr. McNeese here. He's very busy. Where's Andy? Yeah, all right, so he's very busy. Thank you, Andy. And then you see the green shows that we are on track. So we're setting priorities. These are just a few examples, and many of our tasks have already been completed successfully. Everyone participates. Accountability, right? Sometimes I think it's such a power word that we worry about accountability. It is a way to help us measure our progress and to make sure that what we said we're going to do, we're actually doing it. And if we're not doing it, answering the question, why? What can we do to make our progress more successful? So this is an idea of some of the tactics. And so 4 of 12 completed on or before, 7 of 12 on schedule. And importantly in this process, it's okay to refine the plans. One of the 12 tactics was identified as being ineffective, and so it was dropped. And then this is a blowout at the bottom of one of the particular objectives. We said we wanted to decrease our unobligated funds, and there's been great progress. It's down from about you can read it there, $10.9 million in FY14 to about $7 now. I think there's still opportunity there, so don't read it as red. It's just we set it as 0. Still got some work to do, but Andy and Mariano are doing great jobs here. Then I already showed you some evidence of how the research programs show evidence of improvement. So summary slides, great year. If you look back a little further, you see that many, if not all the things we said we were going to do, we've accomplished. We continue to be recognized for our educational excellence. Dr. McKee gave a nice presentation today about SACS. We went through our LCME accreditation, the School of Medicine, very successfully. We launched UTMB Connect, the capital campaign, again, under Ms. Clarity's leadership and Dr. Counter's leadership, doing very well, about 95% of the way. I think there's more evidence of improved communication. We have the weekly relays. We have the Thought You Should Know piece that I helped produce, the Academic Enterprise magazine, Fireside Chats, which is just an opportunity to meet with departments and faculty members on a regular basis. So I hope you agree that we are improving as regards our communication, and you buy that desire on my part to make sure the communication is dense. Very excited about what's upcoming as regards our analytical capabilities. We're working on an enterprise data warehouse under Ms. Cedro's leadership. We're also working to improve our decision support capabilities. On track, but I think those are important things for us to finish very soon. I gave you many examples of infrastructure, I hope, but this is just power and my power about the tools, the roots, that we can use to help us do better. Worked hard under Dr. Bardwaj's leadership around faculty development and mentoring, and you see that we've added the Academy of Master Clinicians to our 2 existing academies, and they're doing great work as regards mentoring and supporting our faculty members. Recruiting will continue to be important. We expanded the Office of Faculty Affairs, again under Dr. Bardwaj, and others looking to make that a resource across all the schools. But Dr. Kane, who I see here in the audience, has done masterful work. I didn't see Dr. Torres, but he's probably working. So is he over there? Oh, there you are. Thank you very much for your efforts here. Research programs. So I'm going to talk in a bit about our plans for research, but I would mention this program as well. Under Dr. Garg and Dr. Niesel, we launched an external grant review program where there are folks that actually review the grants and help improve them to maximize their chances of receiving external funding. Oh, and yeah, another example of infrastructure. So these are the kind of things that you may not know unless you create a list like the one I just created. But if you look at what we've done, we've asked ourselves, well, can't we bring in external reviewers and pair them with internal reviewers and look at our departments and say, what are the strengths, what are the opportunities to give us ideas and information about what we can do to make ourselves better. After Ike, we got a little bit off schedule, but you can see here, again, this is led by Dr. Bardwaj and others. We've been very busy getting department by department expert reviews that are generated both by these external consultants as well as folks internally. And in every instance, those opinions have helped to make us better. Okay, so this is what I think UTMB is really like, right? So, all right, Tim, you're going to help me again? Certainly feels that way, so we just got to keep going a little longer, and we'll be fine. Okay, update on the research planning. So this, again, is one of those crowdsourcing initiatives, right? The complex learning problem. What do we do about research? Where we engage the folks that are experts at the point of contact and ask them to help us define the tactics and objectives we need in order to make our research program stronger. Busy slide again, it gives you some idea of timeline, but I wanted to focus on this side of the slide where you see right before the holidays we moved from the design and recommend towards the adoption process. We would again talk in great detail about tactics. We would also talk about resources that might be needed and prioritization of those resources. We would talk about an implementation plan. We would talk again how we would monitor our progress, and then we'd move towards rolling it out to the community to make sure we had everything right and to try to get the adoption we need to move forward. That was based on a very rigorous set of analyses, if you will, looking at strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, looking at how we did or how well we should do in terms of monitoring for FY16 and beyond, and emphasize the importance of looking at our centers and institutes in terms of getting a better idea of their role in our research programs as we go forward. Again, it's a great team of individuals, Dr. Audenbacher, Garg, Niesel, McNeese, Tony D'Agostino, Dr. Laposada, Dr. Tyler, so I think, and their faculty members. So here's where we are. When the group looked at strengths and opportunities, here are the ones that stood out. And remember, this is the classic sort of organizational strategist viewpoint, strengths, opportunities, weaknesses, and threats, and you put them into those things in the categories, in the quadrants that need to be handled separately. So this is one where you would say, well, these are the things we need to focus on, these are the tremendous strengths. So you can see here, I won't read it all, we felt the need, or the need was felt to extend and defend infectious disease and immunology programs with the various brain initiatives coming online and with the expertise we had here. We thought that would be good. We have tremendous strengths in physical medicine and rehabilitation in Dr. Protas' school, and we thought this would be an important bridge to population health. So as we think about managing the health of populations, we have expertise in the academic enterprise that can be complementary to what's happening throughout the whole organization. The group thought that there were great opportunities to expand research programs in pulmonary and cardiovascular medicine, and that we had to, again, look outside our own borders while supporting our efforts internally to say, where can we partner to help move our programs forward? And you see some examples there. And then good laboratory practices with Dr. Pei-Young Shi and others coming on board to join the great people who are here. We think, and the group felt that there's opportunity there. Again, the strategists talk about internal fix-its, representing the quadrant of weaknesses and opportunities. So here, now, I don't think these are weaknesses, but I do think there are opportunities. Our center and student core directors have worked very, very hard on a very aggressive timeline to help give us data that can be used to ask the question, where do we go as regards these major components of our research program? Certainly the consensus opinion was that there was opportunity to enhance the imaging and biorepository core. I think that's going to be really important as we go forward. And then working with Mrs. King, trying to reinvigorate our technology transfer and commercialization platforms, another opportunity. There are disparate efforts looking at the effect of the microbiome on the host, and they thought there was an opportunity to integrate those. I don't know if Dr. Barrett is here, but Dr. Barrett has made a very strong case, along with others, that we need to be thinking about our clinical trials capabilities off island and not just what we do here. And then an important principle, which I think is near and dear to my heart, is how or what can we do to facilitate clinical engagement in research, getting our clinicians involved in our various programs. Strengths and threats, external fix-its. Again, I look at this as an opportunity, frankly, but we need to get at it, and I think we are. We have the MD Anderson partnership underway, very masterfully led by Ms. Sollenberger, as well as other members of the community. We have to continue to keep our eye on that. By that I mean to make sure that it proceeds according to plan. I have no concerns about it, because I do think we'll be able to rigorously define the partnership and what it looks like, and operationalize it to everyone's benefit. And then here's another reference to the clinical research infrastructure. Again, there are important conversations ongoing. It lead me to believe that we will be addressing our clinical research needs simultaneously with the provision of our patient care services in League City and elsewhere. These are the ones that should cause everyone, certainly cause me to worry. So this is the worry quadrant. We've spent a lot of time, more about that in just a second, asking the question, how should we revise our compensation model, especially as we've heard from the members, to make sure it provides optimal support for our basic and clinical science programs. Our future succession planning, remember, is about our ability to recruit and support junior faculty members or others that come to UTMB. So we have to make sure we think about how we onboard those individuals and how we support them. In these times, this idea or concept of focused recruitment on those high-priority research initiatives, I think, becomes a central tenet for our success. And then, as regards resources, we have to figure out a way to commit as much as we can to support bridge funding needs for our investigators. And if we do all that right, the underpinning, again, will be developing our big data capabilities and improving our IT infrastructure. So when I hear good feedback, as is all feedback, about the planning that we've done, sometimes I think folks say, we don't have enough resources to do everything we want to do, so why are we planning? Well, I have a couple answers to that, but the first one is a favorite quote from Benjamin Franklin, who said, "Those that fail to plan, plan to fail." So, yeah, the times are difficult, but I want us, and I think we all agree, but I want us to plan now such that when more resources become available, we will thought in advance as to how those dollars for other resources like people should be applied. If we do that now, and I'm optimistic about our future, then we won't be reactive. We will have thought about what it is we want to do. We will have had that conversation among the members, and the members will participate in complex learning problem, as opposed to, in the absence of planning, well, we got a plan, so I'm going to do it. I'd rather you be involved because 2 or 3 years from now, one of two things might happen. One might be, whoops, I forgot something. Or the other might be, well, gee, I wish you had been engaged earlier. This dense communication, we needed you. We need you to help plan it. So although there are not yet all the resources we need, I feel pretty good about it. So where are we now as regards the research planning piece? So as before, we're going to put the planning teams together. We will have leaders that will be responsible for each individual element. They will help us work through the resource requirements. They'll do the same thing that has been so successful to date, KPIs, timelines, performance monitoring. That's already underway. As I referenced, or as I mentioned earlier, we're going to ask this group to help us review and adopt and estimate the resource needs. And then we're going to load it into on folks again to make sure, again, we are tracking ourselves as well as informing ourselves about how well we're doing on those particular elements of the research strategic plan. So all of them are critical to success, but what I heard from the participants is that there are probably two major things that we want to focus on. This assessment of our centers and institutes that I referenced earlier is a critically important initiative. We're thinking about this in terms of defining the programs of excellence. What are those things that are performing extraordinarily well now? And for those that are not performing as well as some of the other exemplars, what can we learn from our exemplary program to help guide the efforts of the programs that are growing, nascent programs, if you will? And then it's going to be tied in to recommendations we'll make to the president regarding how we will use our resources. But in every case, the goal is to produce exceptionally innovative research. And here is another important piece that's synergistic with what else is happening in the institution. Where it is possible, we need to be thinking about what we can do in our research programs that can enhance our patient care services, our educational services. Now, not everything we do in research is going to map that way, but if we don't ask that question, then we're not going to be as in tune to the possibilities. So this idea about identifying mechanisms to extend existing or to create new programs of excellence is critically important. I'm big on strategic partnerships, and so you see ample evidence of that in the earlier part of my presentation, working with the other major components of our academic medical center, as well as with other institutions to drive our institution forward. And as Dr. Callender said, we may not be the biggest, but there's no reason why we can't be the best. So here's a little bit more about programs of excellence. And I don't expect you to read this slide here. But look at this component here, this axis, you might think of it as demand, and this axis you might think of it as capabilities. The size of the bubbles represents the current funding portfolios for these programs. Here's infectious disease up here. So you can look at this and you could say, well, here are some programs we want to support. What is the magic? Why are they doing so well? And here are some other programs that might be nationally or internationally recognized that are not quite as competitive as regards demand on the market or capabilities. What should we do as an institution to move those up to the top left-hand side of that graph? So that's it. It is difficult work because there are mountains of data that are being requested, but all of our center heads were able to do that. We have the documents prepared. The external review committees have already been identified. Dr. Hearn, Vice Chancellor for Research, is going to spearhead that effort. So I think that's great. I want to emphasize again that a major objective is to understand how these programs complement the other things that we're doing, where that happens. And then we have to be more strategic and coordinated as regards our investments, and I think that'll help us build brand awareness if we get that all right. Look at Mr. Campbell. All right, a bit about the compensation plan. So Mr. Bristol, I see in the audience, and others helped lead this. I had a number of conversations individually with departments in the fireside chats. I've spoken to folks. Mr. Bristol collected lots of information, ideas about how the faculty compensation plan might be improved. I'm going to try to summarize those things that might be possible for the next iteration of the faculty compensation and incentive plan. We thought, and everyone felt, there was an opportunity to clarify the eligibility requirements, who's in, as regards the three major components of the plan: the individual piece, the group piece, the institutional piece. We heard loud and clear that folks thought we should eliminate the 20% threshold for eligibility for the education component, and so we're going to eliminate that. And so now, for defined educational activities, there will be recognition in the faculty compensation plan for those who participate. Members talked about the importance of recognizing healthcare value and quality, so we think we have a proposal. Well, we have a proposal which we think we can get approved. It's currently being reviewed by our legal team, including Mrs. Bremen, that says, yes, there is a component, probably small, 10%, that recognizes those objectives that we mutually identify as being important as regards quality and value. Now, some would say, well, 10%, is that the right number, or is it 15%, 20%, 30%? You know, I don't think there is a right number. If you look across compensation plans in the country, they hit right about 10%. The caveat that I would say is that we start at 10%, but we need to be prepared that it will go higher and higher. So we can now, in partnership with Ms. Sollenberger, her team, Ms. Sadro, and others, say, well, these are the quality metrics we think are important for us, and this is how we're going to recognize contributions that are exceptional along the value axis. There was a lot of concern about the frequency of assessments for research and education, so we're now shifting that to occur annually instead of partway through the year. The other question, folks said, well, how is it, unfortunately some folks might get performance-based adjustments, reductions. What's the mechanism for returning their institutional-based salary? So we have some language there, which I think is going to rely heavily on the chairs and others, division chief, in concert with the finance folks, other operating folks, say, well, okay, here is the mechanism, here is the proposal to restore Dr. Jacobs' salary, because Dr. Jacobs is doing what I want him to do, and is doing it exceptionally well. The initial effort for the faculty compensation plan was to make it as simple as possible, although compensation is always complicated in some cases. But we looked at it again, and based on feedback we got from the members, we said, well, we can take that former B2, which was the specialty discipline specific fixed component of the original faculty compensation plan, as well as B3, which was a specialty discipline specific performance-based component, and roll them into a single component, a B2 component, where we look both at market forces, which are increasingly important, as well as performance-based components in terms of setting that portion of a person's salary. And then as regards our investigators, one of the things, again, we heard loud and clear was, well, we needed a cleaner mechanism, a clearer mechanism to allow increases in that potential B2 component for, again, investigators with defined research activities who are being successful. Now, again, these are all ideas, these are possibilities, but we have collected all of that, and right now we're working very, very hard with our colleagues in HR and legal to make sure that we can get these ideas refined and hopefully implemented by September this year. So please, if you haven't given us some concerns or ideas you have about the previous version of the faculty compensation plan, please send that to us. All right, last bit, finance. I always am I perceive a little trepidation there because I see Ms. Sadro already frowning, but she will help me if I get this wrong. There's Celia as well. Okay, contribution margin by mission. Contribution margin definition there in the bottom. Variable revenue minus variable cost. Or, if I get this right, how much of our revenue would be contributing to covering our fixed expenses and providing net income after we cover variable expenses? I'm looking at somebody to say, is that okay? Yeah, okay, all right, thank you. So here's the point of this. Clinical mission, I showed you some data, doing very well. Education mission, yeah, there are some dollars to be redistributed elsewhere. But this is the investment in research. Where's Dr. Laposada? That's his favorite phrase, right? Think about this as an investment. And so there's about $22 million there. Now, as you can tell, folks have tried to drill this information into me for many, many years. I think I get it. Sometimes I have to reread it. But this is the one that's a little bit easier for me to grasp. I come from institutions that are all cash-based. So this is the adjusted margin for FY15, again by mission, And this, I like to think of as all revenue, all expenses, or bottom line. This is where Dr. Lafasada's comment about investment is so important, where Dr. Counter's comments about us being one institution is so important. Why our hospital and its performance is so important, because that's how we generate the margin that we use to support these investments. It's not just about the money, but if we don't have the money, you know the old expression, no margin, no mission? So we are working diligently to try to do that, and there is a substantial investment in research, as there should be, but also investments in our clinical and education programs. We have some challenges in front of us. This is an attempt to show where we are now relative to where we need to end this year, and perhaps a bit about where we think we need to end in FY17. I showed a slide a while ago. When we look back over time in terms of this same sort of adjusted margin illustration from FY11 or 12 through FY15. And the trend line would go up in terms of the deficit. The gap would increase by about $15 million a year. And then you see there, I've got to walk up so I can read it, FY15 actual, $78 million. But now if you look at what we've done in FY16, we've taken about $14 million out of that. Great work, phenomenally difficult work to do in these times, but a testament to the great work that everyone's doing. But we still have some work to do to hit that target of $45 million for our projected, or for our budgeted end to this year. This is an effort to talk about the drivers. So how do we close that gap? About $18.5 million. We had a nice strategic executive council meeting today. Ms. Ochoa mentioned some of these things. I think the gap is substantial, but I think we can close it. Some of it is in our control, or it was under our control, and some of it was not, like the delay in opening of our new League City campus. But we have about a $10.3 million shortfall related to unfilled faculty recruits. Grants and contracts are off just a bit. We're focusing on the margin improvement plans, great work being done there. Some of them I hope are going to, and I think are going to come to fruition in the next several months. But I already mentioned the importance of partnering with our health system colleagues. There are many areas here where we talk about creating revenue and margin where we can improve by focusing ever more intently on things like length of stay or readmissions or other things that are going to provide great quality and value for our patients, but also help us financially. So it's a daunting story, but I'm going to close by saying, well, so where do we go from here? Without a doubt, we have significant challenges ahead of us, but there are some things that are controllable. I've referenced them: clinical growth, focusing on research. You'll see that those summaries there. There are some things that are going to require partnership. I've tried to reference those, working with shared services, our hospital colleagues. We've got some great work on the revenue cycle management. All of those things are opportunities, and don't forget philanthropy. And there are some things that just may be out of our control. Dr. Counter gave a nice summary today of the upcoming challenges for our legislators. So to me, the message, the MO, our way forward ought to be, we need to keep doing what we're doing, which is why the juggling videos are so important to us. But if we focus on implementation and delivery, I think we'll be fine. We're going to refresh the AE 2020 very soon by calling back, as time permits, folks that were part of the original planning group to ask the questions, where are we now, and what do we need to do to go forward? All right, so one more video, please.
I don't know what to say, really. 3 minutes to the biggest battle of our professional lives. All comes down to today. Either we heal as a team, or we're going to crumble. Inch by inch, play by play, till we're finished. We're in hell right now, gentlemen. Believe me. And we can stay here, get it kicked out of us, or we can fight our way back into the light. We can climb out of hell. 1 inch at a time. Now, I can't do it for you. I'm too old. I look around, I see these young faces, and I think, I made every wrong choice a middle-aged man can make. I threw away all my money, believe it or not. I chased off anyone who's ever loved me. And lately, I can't even stand the face I see in the mirror. You know, when you get old in life, things get taken from you. I mean, that's part of life. But you only learn that when you start losing stuff. You find out life's this game of inches. So is football. Because in either game, life or football, the margin for error is so small. I mean, one half a step too late or too early, and you don't quite make it. 1/2 second too slow, too fast, you don't quite catch it. The inches we need are everywhere around us.
Hell yeah.
They're in every break of the game, every minute, every second. On this team, we fight for that inch. On this team, we tear ourselves and everyone else around us to pieces for that inch. We claw with our fingernails for that inch. Because we know when we add up all those inches, that's gonna make the difference between winning and losing. Between living and dying. I'll tell you this, in any fight, it's the guy who's willing to die who's gonna win that inch. And I know if I'm gonna have any life anymore, it's because I'm still willing to fight and die for that inch. Because that's what living is. The 6 inches in front of your face. Now, I can't make you do it. You gotta look at the guy next to you. Look into his eyes. Now, I think you're gonna see a guy who will go that inch with you.
Hell yeah.
You're gonna see a guy who will sacrifice himself for this team because he knows when it comes down to it, you're gonna do the same for him. That's a team, gentlemen.
Hell yeah.
And either we heal now as a team, or we will die as individuals. That's football, guys. That's all it is. Now, what are you gonna do?
Well, I love that speech, as you can tell. It is about football. But, I think there's truth in it. It's also about life. And so, can't do it as individuals. We have to do it as a team. So I need your help. We need your help. One more run. I put up this slide to talk about one of my favorite activities, bicycle riding. And there's an expression in bicycle riding that when you're climbing a hill, you start off in a race, you only have about 10 matches, a book of matches, and that's all you're going to get. So you got to figure out when you're going to strike them, because if you strike them too soon, you're not going to finish. So we're at that point where we need to strike that one more match for 18 months, 24 months, and I think we'll be fine. We have a couple minutes for questions. Thank you very much for your attention.
UTMB Health, working together to work wonders.